welcome to Steve Fan Sports, a sports show that is dedicated to Seattle sports fans. My name is Dave, this is Kevin, and this is Mariner Weekly. All right, before we jump into Mariner Weekly, guys, what I'd like to have us do, make sure that you hit those subscribe buttons. Please, it's going to help us get this channel even more professional than it already isn't. So make sure that you guys are hitting that subscribe button. Make sure you turn on those notification bells. Thumbs up, please. Make sure if you gotta give us a thumbs down. We want your opinion either way. Also, make sure that you guys are dropping comments in the comment section down below. Now, as frustrating as this offseason is, we still have things to talk about, Kevin. We still have decisions that need to be made. And one of the decisions right now, I think, is that we are at the starting line waiting for the gun to sound and this offseason to get back on track and for us to look for another bat or third baseman or second baseman, whatever the case may be. It's going to be one of those two positions that we're going to bring in. And this week, what I'd like us to do, Kevin, is I'd like us to take a look at two players that keep getting linked to the Seattle Mariners often. Kris Bryant, Trevor Story. And hopefully we can shuffle the papers around, look through the stats, and I think we could come up with a guy that we feel is going to be worth the amount of money that the Seattle Mariners are going to invest in him. So let's start out with WAR, Kevin. Which of these two players, first of all, tell us a little bit about Kris Bryant and Trevor Story.
Well, what I wanted to say too is Trevor Story came out this last week and he basically said that, hey, look, I don't really want to change positions if I don't have to. So as long as I have options to play shortstop, I'm going to continue to play shortstop. And I can't fault him for that, but that's what he said, which means that the Mariners don't want a shortstop. They want a second baseman or a third baseman. So we might be on the back burner for Trevor Story. Trevor Story's 29 years old. Kris Bryant's 30 years old for next season. And I just really think that these guys are both pretty similar guys all the way around. I have basically from 2016 when Trevor Story came into the league, I know that Kris Bryant came in 2015, but from 2016 to 2021, we kind of have a breakdown of every kind of categories, fielding, hitting, strikeouts, all that kind of stuff. So we'll kind of break those down. So that's kind of where we want to go.
So let's get to WAR, because to me, wins above replacement is probably one of the best stats that we can have out there, because hopefully that win above replacement will get us the 1 or 2 games that we needed to get into the postseason this year. So let's start with WAR. Kris Bryant's WAR.
So I have the total basically of WAR for the last 6 years. And Kris Bryant had a 23.5, which averages out to 3.92 on the average for the 6 years. Trevor Story had a 26.7 WAR, which breaks down to 4.45 WAR on the average per year. So both of them are very, very good either way you look at it. And I mean, they're not 5 or 9 or anything like that, but hey, I'll take 4 or 5 all day long. So,
but keep in mind, I want to make sure we throw this caveat on here that Trevor Story was playing in Denver, which is a hitter-friendly park in the thin air. So I just want to make sure that we understand that what he did was most of the time in the thin air of Denver, Colorado. All right, Kevin, let's go ahead and look out. What kind of strikeout rate are we looking at per 9 on these guys?
Well, strikeouts not 9 per 9, but the total strikeouts over the year. Trevor Story had 865 strikeouts in the last 6 years. Kris Bryant had 709. That's a huge difference between the two of them on strikeouts. I know, they played basically, Trevor Story played 745 games. Kris Bryant played 733 games.
Okay.
Trevor Story had 3,136 plate appearances. Kris Bryant had 3,188. So it's pretty impressive that, he only had 700 strikeouts in 6 years. I mean,
Okay, Kim, let's get to the big question.
yeah.
Man, how many balls are they spraying out of the park? Where's our home run rates?
Home runs, Trevor Story playing in, Denver hit 158 over the last 6 years. Kris Bryant, 141. So,
oh wow. Well, and of course, according he's played some in Chicago, played some in San Francisco,
yeah,
and a little bit of a marine layer in those two places, but still was able to somewhat put out comparable numbers.
Yep.
Triples and doubles. Where are we looking at there?
Well, triples, Trevor Story had 27 triples.
Okay.
And there is a reason, and I'll explain that in a minute. He had 27 triples to Kris Bryant's 14. He had 180 doubles. Trevor Story had 180 doubles compared to Kris Bryant's 173. So that was very comparable. And here's why Trevor Story had so many triples. He had 100 stolen bases in 6 years. He's fast.
You got some wheels.
He's got some wheels. Kris Bryant, 31. Huge difference in numbers.
There's a little bit of difference there.
Now, Trevor Story was also caught 30 times stealing. Kris Bryant was 16. So Kris Bryant kind of reminds me a little bit more of Kyle Seager, that you're not going to really run the bases too often. So that's why I think Trevor Story had quite a few more triples than Kris Bryant.
All right. So, Kevin, I guess it all boils down to batting averages.
Nah, I don't know. On base percentage, slugging.
Yeah.
Batting average. They're very similar. Trevor Story had a 272 career batting average over the last those 6 years. Mm-hmm. Kris Bryant, 279. Trevor Story had 768 hits. Kris Bryant, 760.
Wow.
Trevor Story had 463 runs. Kris Bryant had 505. Now, on RBIs, though, Trevor Story had 450 RBIs compared to Kris Bryant's 388. I don't know if they had more guys on base or whatever, but that was a little bit of a gap. So,
what about walk rate, Kevin? What kind of walk rate were we looking at?
Well, Trevor Story had 266 walks. Kris Bryant, 366. Kris Bryant controls the zone, which
it sounds like he's more patient.
If I remember right, I think the Mariners kind of like controlling the zone. So I think it's pretty interesting. So on base percentage, Trevor Story had a 340 on base percentage. Kris Bryant had a 378, obviously probably because of the walks. Slugging percentage, Trevor Story had a 523 slugging percentage. Kris Bryant had a 507. The OPS, Trevor Story had an 863. Kris Bryant had an 885.
Wow.
Now, Trevor Story got hit by 32 times, got hit by pitchers.
Okay.
Kris Bryant in 6 years been hit 78 times.
Good gravy. He is making somebody mad.
Yeah, he is. I don't know. So now extra base hits. Trevor Story obviously being in Denver, 365 extra base hits. Kris Bryant, 328.
Kevin, now that we kind of got the numbers there, and they sound comparable, it sounds more like, just according to the numbers, that Kris Bryant would look better in a Mariner uniform just because of the style that he plays.
I don't know. I think both of them would be really fine. Kris Bryant does do some stuff like control the zone. It takes very patient. I mean, obviously with that many walks and less strikeouts. Fielding percentage, Trevor Story had a higher fielding percentage. He had a 979 fielding percentage, where Kris Bryant had a 959. Trevor Story had 66 errors. Kris Bryant had 73. So in all reality, you are right. They aren't that far apart. I think overall, they're both very solid. One's a year younger. One plays third base, not second. So it really depends on what the Mariners' focus is, whether they want to put somebody at second base or they want to put somebody at third base. So
not only that, Kevin, I also think, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Nope, I also think that we're going to be looking for a player that wants to play in Seattle. Yes. And I think that guy is Kris Bryant. Let me just read you something that came from Paul Sewald. Just 1 second here, Kevin. Kris Bryant is a very good friend of mine. I know the Mariner fans are listening very close at this point. I convinced him to go to the University of San Diego with me to play with me there. I am doing the best I possibly can to get him to be a Seattle Mariner for the next few years. I'm not in charge of how much money he gets or what deal he takes, but I promise I am doing my best to be a middleman between him and the front office. Again, we look at Robbie Ray coming to Seattle. That was a Mitch Haniger thing. He was involved in that. He was middling in that. And I see Paul Sewald, who is a cornerstone of that bullpen, working on Kris Bryant as well. And this is going to completely bring a team atmosphere and make those guys even more of a juggernaut, along with the production that he brings to us in the field and at the plate. I like it. I've signed off. I would rather see Kris Bryant than Trevor Story.
Kris Bryant also, he plays third base and outfield. So he could be an extra outfielder. And because we already have, Abraham Toro, who can fill in at third base anytime. Right. So, that would leave Adam Frazier to play second base all year. So, I'm okay with that.
All right, guys, what we need for you to do in the comment section down below, I want to hear whether you guys are on Kris Bryant or whether you guys are on Trevor Story. Tell us who you want to see in a Seattle Mariner uniform. I think Kevin and I both are on the Kevin, are you playing Kris Bryant train? And that's the way it is.
To be honest with you, I'm happy either way. I would like either one of them. I'm not taking one side or the other. I think they're both very equal. And so I would be joyful to have either one. And from what I've been reading, that, we could actually add another person with one of these guys. So there could be possibility with one or the other and adding the third, another player as well. So,
well, I'm not as diplomatic as you. I'd rather see Kris Bryant. So there you go. Don't know what else to say.
Yep.
All right, Kevin, any final words for the guys out there today?
Go Mariners.
Go Mariners. You guys have a great weekend.